Have you ever seen a quiet woman rise like a storm? Megan, once soft-spoken and obedient, lived with her husband Calvin, his mother, and his sister April in an old, broken apartment. But everything changed when her cousin grandmother passed away and left her a new apartment. What followed was not just a story about furniture and family, but a battle between silence and strength. This story is not about drama, it's about awakening. From the moment Megan got the keys, things started to shift in ways no one expected. And Calvin? He never saw it coming. Megan sat across from Calvin, her hands resting on her lap. He looked at her, annoyed and confused. "Megan, what's wrong with you again? What else do you want?" he asked, perched on the edge of the sofa that once belonged to his grandmother. The Persian throw was gone, just like everything familiar in their life. Megan didn't flinch. "Me? I haven't even opened my mouth yet," she replied calmly. Her new confidence scared Calvin. He hated the change in her expression. She didn't look like his wife anymore. She looked like someone in control. Calvin didn't like that her silence had turned into confidence. In the past, she looked at him with love. Now her gaze felt like a courtroom stare. Her perfect blouse and straight posture added to the tension. A week earlier, Megan had gone to the notary's office. She held a folder with papers and stood in line to claim the apartment. But she didn't feel excited. She felt nervous. An apartment was not just a gift. It was a burden if you had greedy people around you. Calvin believed in sharing, but only when the things being shared weren't his. He used her money for beers and friends. Whenever Megan wanted something small for herself, he always said, "We don't have money." She never argued. She had nowhere to go. She married Calvin only because she needed a roof. Now, with this new apartment, she had something of her own. And suddenly, Calvin and his family became very interested in helping her with it. Calvin didn't even let her open the door. He grabbed the keys and visited first. "There's nothing there, just junk," he said. But behind those words was greed. He saw opportunity. He claimed he was just cleaning, but what he really did was start selling things. Calvin's mother brought her kitchen pots. April dumped out the old wardrobe and filled it with her clothes. They moved in like it belonged to them. And Megan? She watched it all silently, but she wasn't going to stay quiet forever. Calvin even called the sale of her grandma's china set a favor. "We're not opening a museum," he joked, handing off the porcelain to a neighbor. Megan said nothing. Her silence was no longer fear. It was calculation. She had one thing they didn't expect: a plan. She placed a tiny camera near the entrance. It showed everything. She knew she had to act fast. If she didn't, she'd lose everything. Not just the apartment, but her dignity too. And Calvin would never stop unless someone stopped him first. By Wednesday, the apartment was legally hers. She had signed every document. On Thursday morning, a police officer rang the bell. Calvin opened the door with a lazy smile, but it quickly vanished. "Good morning," the officer said. "Your wife has filed a complaint. Here's a list of stolen items." Calvin turned pale. "What are you talking about? This is our place," he shouted. Megan stood behind the officer, calm and steady. "No, Calvin, this was my grandma's, and now it's mine." Calvin's mother shouted from the kitchen, blaming Megan. April came out with a towel on her head, yelling as well. But Megan didn't waver. "You sold the vase, the paintings, the clock I loved. Everything is listed here." The officer showed them the flash drive. "Look at this video. July 15th. Calvin carrying out boxes. His mother with suitcases. Even the samovars on tape." Calvin tried to explain, but nothing made sense. The evidence was right there. Megan had caught them all. They called it junk. They called it cleaning. But the law called it theft. The officer gave them two choices: return everything or face charges. Calvin looked at Megan with tears in his eyes. "You won't really send me to jail, right? We're family." Megan shook her head. "No, I won't send you to jail if you bring back everything and the money, too. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She looked like a woman who had decided never to be stepped on again. Calvin couldn't believe it. You reported me? He yelled as movers brought back the furniture. Megan replied calmly, Not reported. I filed legally. You always said we should follow the law. His mother clutched a pillow, crying, accusing Megan of being heartless. Megan didn't argue. She had heard enough lies, enough insults. They had sold her grandmother's memories for some quick cash. And now they wanted sympathy? No more. The next day, Calvin's mother left in silence. April packed quickly and didn't look back. The house felt lighter without their voices. Calvin stood in the doorway, lost. Can we start over, Megan? He asked. But he already knew the answer. He had lost something he could never get back. Megan's love. Her trust, her silence had turned into steel, and there was no space left for pity. Megan looked at him and smiled faintly. Start with respect, Calvin. That's the beginning of anything worth saving. But this is over. She pointed to the door. Calvin didn't argue. He left. Megan closed the door behind him. The apartment felt new, not just because the furniture was back, but because she finally felt free. The sound of Grandma's old clock was the only thing left, and it was perfect. Later, Calvin brought back more items. The china, the spoons, even the silver cup holders. Megan didn't say thank you. She took them and placed everything back where it belonged. She walked through each room, dusted the shelves, and whispered to herself. This was not just an apartment. It was her life starting again. She was no longer a woman hiding behind fear. She was someone who stood up, and she wasn't going back. She didn't cry. She didn't celebrate. She just stood there still and proud. She had won without shouting. She had protected what was hers. She had chosen herself. For years, Calvin's family made her feel small, but now she realized her value. She was not weak. She was not helpless. She was strong enough to take back everything they tried to steal. Her next step was clear. She sat down, wrote a note, and filed for divorce. It was time. Time to leave behind the lies, the yelling, the control. She wanted peace. She wanted her own life. The kind where no one shouted at her, where no one took her things, where no one made her feel guilty for existing. She was done living for others. She looked out the window, smiled, and whispered, New life begins. And with that, she closed the chapter on a life that never felt like hers. She was free, and she was never going back.